Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and here we explore the world of fountain pens, ink, and paper. And today, I was getting set up to do a review of this pen, the Riimoo LY530. This is a pen styled very similarly to the old Schaefer Balance pens and made of turned acrylic, and this one is really great looking, and it already looks good right here. But I'll tell you what, you can't appreciate the resin this pen is made of unless we go outside. So let's run outside and let me show you this pen in the sun and in its full glory. All right, here is the pen in full sunlight. And you can see, this is just hard for me to capture, both the depth and those glistening swirls and the lights that I have inside. And the sun just does a much better job. Just check that out. This is a beautiful brown resin. And let me just give this away at the beginning. This pen was just $17 when I bought it, and it still is today. And I think just for the resin alone, much less what we'll see in the rest of the review, well worth that. A really great value. Just check out all of the color variation and swirls. Lots going on here with this pen. And check that out. That's the first bluebonnet I've seen in my yard this year. We just got some rain over the weekend, and they're starting to pop up. All right, now back at the desk, you can see what I was talking about. It looks fantastic here, but nothing like what you can see out there in the sun. So the model number of this pen is the LY530, and I believe that's because this is really a Live You pen. I believe that because LY530 and because when you look at the barrel, it says Live You, okay? So when I bought the pen, I was on an AliExpress run, and I had seen several times over the last weeks, maybe even months, this brand called Riimoo, Riimoo, with a few different models. The shape is very familiar and looks like an old Schaefer Balance sort of, and you see this sort of a pen shape from all different kinds of companies. And since I wasn't familiar with it, I just wasn't sure if it was something that I wanted to put on my list. Then one day, I noticed that they had this brown resin, and you know how I am. Kind of like the way I'm a sucker for a good pen in a Galaxy resin, I'm also kind of a sucker for a pen in a beautiful brown resin, and I think that is what this is. And doesn't that look great? Now, Live You has been around for quite a while and is known much more in the Chinese market than it is here in the West. And they have a good reputation and have for several years. When I was first getting into fountain pens, again, and first getting into pens that are from the Chinese marketplace, this was a brand that I became aware of, but just never bit the bullet and purchased. I couldn't even tell you why. That was several years ago. And that this came out as a Riimoo, but it is a Live You pen for sure. Maybe somebody more familiar with the current Chinese market can explain why that name Riimoo is attached to the pen. I have no idea, but I do appreciate info in the comments, and y'all are often great at providing that. Anyway, as I said, classic Schaefer Balance style in the way this pen has been turned, but with its own clip. Now, it does look very similar to my recently reviewed Tang Moon. See the two resins that catch my eye here, right? Here's the Galaxy again, but not at all identical. These are not the same pen, though I think if you're just window shopping on AliExpress or eBay, you might easily get them confused. But the more you look, the more differences you see. They're not really turned in an identical shape. The clips are completely different, as are other details as you look closer and closer. That Tang Moon, if you haven't seen that review, you'll want to check out. This is really a neat pen. But back to the LY530, so pointed at both ends, that's just the way this design goes, very nicely turned, and the polish on this resin really done well. That name engraved in the side also done very, very well. I've had much more expensive pens where that was not done with the same consistency and depth to the letters and a nice crispness to them, so that impressed me. But this material, you can see that's not a sharp edge at all. Again, nicely turned, nicely polished. The fit and finish on this is quite good. When you open the cap, you get one turn. One turn. For some of you, that's almost a selling point right there, isn't it? Now, you can post this pen. You may or may not want to because you don't want to put wear marks there on the resin maybe. Looking down the cap, you do see a plastic seal, and you can see what looks like either an alloy, probably an alloy screw that holds that clip in place. Looking at the grip section, you have, of course, the threads and then a gold-colored trim ring. That's a shallow step down, so no comfort issues there, and a long enough grip that that's just not an issue. I find this to be comfortable in hand, ergonomics just fine, long enough to write with it, unposted. Just a really nice pen in hand. Very similar if you have a Pen BBS 480. This is a bit thinner in diameter, but a very similar shape. So if you like or dislike writing with that pen, that'll inform what you're going to think on this one. But there are, some slight differences. When you open up the barrel, you will find the acrylic on metal threads and then the included converter. It is a 2.6 millimeter Chinese standard converter. All right, looking closely at the nib, you can see there is that Live in You logo along with some markings that I can't read. Perhaps somebody will be able to tell us in the comments exactly what those say. Now, it says SF like soft fine, but I don't find that it performs like a soft fine. It just seems like a standard fine to me. Maybe SF stands for standard fine. I don't know, but I would just consider it a standard steel fine. Steel fine. Maybe that's what SF stands for. Anyway, I'll stop messing around with you. But that is a number 5 sized nib with a pretty typical plastic feed, which, by the way, has the same logo as a Picasso pen. So maybe the deal is, with it being called a Riimoo while looking like a Live in You and having the feed from a Picasso, maybe this is some sort of Frankenpen. I have no idea, but it does all work pretty well together, so there's that. So overall, the design is simple and classic, and I think looks quite good in this brown resin as well as some of the other colors that are available. And here we have that LY530. Again, just great looking pen. And then, again, that Tang Moon with its galaxy blue resin, it might steal the show. And then for pens that are a bit more familiar maybe to most of you, size-wise, here is the Muji pen, always a favorite affordable pen of mine. I can't believe they're not just churning those out of the factory anymore. And then the Platinum Prefonte. Another great pen. If you don't have the Prefonte, it's pretty much exactly the same size as a Preppy, and that will give you some idea of size of this pen. Pretty standard in length, pretty standard in diameter, about the same as that Platinum. And now we have all those pens in their uncapped and unposted lengths, and again, really close. It's just really close. These are all very similarly sized, even though very different in their styles as you go across the 4 of them. You may also notice that 3 of these have number 5 steel nibs. 2 of them are gold-plated or at least gold-toned. And I'll give you bonus points in the comments if you happen to know what 2 of them, but I won't tell you which 2, also have in common regarding their nibs. I have no doubt some of you eagle-eyed watchers have already figured that one out. And here are the pens in their posted lengths. And again, really, really close. The Muji's the longest, and then the Tang Moon, and then pretty much the Platinum and that Live in You pen, pretty much exactly the same. I mean, there's like, maybe a millimeter or 2 difference. And let me just say, every one of these pens, if you're not familiar, you ought to go check out those reviews because each of them has some really great qualities. And all of these at the affordable end of the spectrum. I'm still going to write Riimoo because if you want to go look up this pen on AliExpress, and I'll put a link in the description, that's what you're going to need to look for. And they have it listed as the LY530. Again, it does come in other colors, and some of those look really good too. This is a fine steel nib. It is a number 5. Not sure. I assume that's an in-house nib. If it's made by someone else, they don't market it that way. The Tang Moon, for example, came with a Schmidt nib. This doesn't make that claim, but it does write quite well. It's meant to be a stiff nib, so line variation shouldn't be overly expected, but you get, a little bit with patience. Wetness for a fine, I think, is just fine. ink today is Noodlers. That's this bottle right here, Noodlers, Gold and Limonite. And this is an interesting brown. It might seem a little bit lighter in this sample. It does have some variation. The pen is not overly wet, but I find it kind of depends on the paper that I'm writing on. It looks a little darker on some other papers. I plan on doing an ink test of this pretty soon, along with a separate test of the 2 new Lamy inks that are out. The pen writes really nice. I'm really pleased. I figured I would be pleased with the way the pen looked. It's a nice material and it seems well done. But also glad that the writing experience is a good one. Again, it's comfortable in hand. Ergonomics are nice. And this is tried and true shape and design here anyway. It would only be weird if it wasn't good in that sense. But the nib I like. Oops. I have no idea why I'm putting commas between these letters. They are unnecessary. But I guess for consistency's sake, I'm just going to keep going. So I've been using this pen quite a bit in the last, I'm going to say week or so, 2 weeks maybe. Might have been 2 weeks already. And I've really enjoyed it, and I really like this ink, which viewers sent that. Really appreciate it. It wasn't even on my radar, and I love it when something that I wasn't even aware of comes my way and turns out to be something really cool. Let's do our speed test and see how this holds up. I haven't done this in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to learn as you learn, right? Let's try this. Okay, I did a couple of lists, so ignore those first two. Let's watch the second part. Maybe this will tell us something. Yeah, fine. I did a couple of lists there, but look at that. No problem whatsoever. On the downstroke, that is just no pressure, just moderate pressure. And that's if you're wanting to get some variation. And you can tell there's a little there, but it's not much. If you wanted the pen to write a bit wetter and you want to do the downstroke method of making a dry pen wetter, I think this would respond pretty quickly from the look of that. But I'm pleased with the way the pen is writing from the factory, which doesn't always happen, but it happened today. So what are my overall impressions? Let's sum this up. For $17, you're getting a very beautiful brown resin. Now, I haven't seen the others in person, but some of them look like they would be pretty nice too. But this one is, as brown pens go, terrific. I don't think I mentioned it, but you're getting a really stiff but very usable clip. That has functioned well. So if somebody asked me, hey, what about that Riimoo pen? You think that's any good? I would tell them, yes, I do. That didn't work, James. You should edit that out. That's embarrassing. Anyway, the Riimoo pen gets a thumbs up from me. I really am enjoying writing with that. And as always, thank you for watching. And if you've got input on this pen, good, bad, or indifferent, share that in the comments below. If you can give me a little bit more history of where the whole Riimoo versus Live in You thing comes in, I would appreciate that. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful week. God bless you.